Well, we've discussed the physical part of it, and we've discussed the psychological parts of it. Not in great detail, but we touched on them. Right now we're going to get into the use of methods, and we're going to spend some time there and try to understand it. Now, use of methods, that means taking what your teacher has taught you, what your trainers have taught you, and doing them. The kicking sequences, the punching sequences, your fight strategy, your footwork, taking that technique and utilizing it, doing it, physically able to do it. Now, how do I learn this effectively? Instead of just going in and going, 2 hours a night for 6 nights a week for the next 6 years, I might learn it if I just go in and see what's going to happen. But if I come in with a method and I try to get an understanding of what's going on, I can break it down and I can be more productive for the time spent in the dojo or the gym. So we're going to take this use of method. Now, we'll take any technique you can think of, a roundhouse kick, a front kick, a combination, whatever. In order to learn it, you have to do it on 3 levels. There's everything you learn in life, you learn on 3 levels of development. The first one's mechanical, just like a robot. Now remember when you were a child, if not, look at a child, a baby. They just don't jump up and run down the street. They have to learn how to crawl. They have to learn how to walk. When they first get up and walk, they're holding on to something, and most parents nowadays, when they do the same thing with a finger, but when I was a toddler, my mother told me the way she broke us into walking, she let us hold on to a clothespin instead of her finger. And we were walking along holding this clothespin, and all of a sudden we realized we were just holding a clothespin. We were walking all by ourselves. Well, we gained some confidence there, but remember, you stood up, tried to take a step, and you fell down. You got up and you did this. So on a mechanical level, it's the way we learn everything. Even another example, riding a bicycle. When we first learned how to ride a bicycle, we had a balance problem, had a pedaling and balance problem at the same time. Then when we tried to make a turn, we tried to turn the wheel, and we had problems with that. Later on, we learned how to do it. We leaned when we wanted to make a bend. Now that's your technical level of development in a technique. It's learning how to take that mechanical movement and make it fluid. Your technical level is where you develop your speed, your timing, your accuracy, your power, your delivery, your stealthiness, learning how to disguise your movements. This is all done on a technical level of development. And then you take it on the 3rd level, which is psychological. When do I get up and walk? When do I run? When do I skip? When do I jump? It determines what's happening in that environment at that time. When I'm riding a bike, when do I make the turn? How far do I lean? In fighting, it's when do I use a front kick versus a right cross versus a left hook versus a jump spin heel hook, or versus anything. It's when do I apply this particular method or technique. That's your psychological development. Plus, also learning how to stay calm and relaxed while somebody's punching you in the nose. That's psychological development, see? But you learn those psychological developments like point of view on these 3 levels. On a point of view, like we talked about before, consciously held thought to commit you to some form of purposeful action, the first thing you have to realize on a mechanical level that level exists. You actually can control your thought process. You actually can stay calm and relaxed in a fight situation. You may not be able to do it, but you may have experienced a little taste of it, or you've seen it. And you say, okay, well, I know that level exists. Now, on a technical level, you go in and try it. I remember a time in Williamsburg, I fought in a tournament. I was, I think, a purple belt at the time. My point of view, and we always try to set a point of view before we went into a tournament fight. What were we going to try to come out of this tournament with learned? We didn't care about the trophies. We won enough trophies. But what we were there for is so we could walk in a ring, look at a guy we've never seen before. We have no idea how he walks, talks, or spits, and we've got 2 minutes to hit him 3 times before he hits us 3 times. We use that experience to train and understand our technical level and development better. So we went in with a point of view. And my particular point of view at this time was to be relaxed when I went in the ring. Not to be tense, be relaxed. Well, I went in there and I was just so relaxed that this guy tripped over his foot and hit me with a punch and won the fight. Man, you talk about somebody that was hot. I walked out of that fight, I was hot. Man, my goodness, the guy, sloppy man, tripped over his foot and hit me, and they gave him the point, and he won the fight. And I walked out, and people were coming over to me and knew me and said, Dan, man, I've never seen you look so good. I said, what do you mean look so good? He tripped over his foot and hit me, and I lost. What do you mean look good? But you look so relaxed. Well, I realized I was concentrating on being relaxed so much that I forgot to fight. Well, the next time I went into a tournament to fight, I took that essence of what it was like to be relaxed, the feeling of what it was to be relaxed, and I fought. And then I developed. Now, that's a technical level of developing of that particular technique. So we have a mechanical, realizing that I've chosen this point of view, and this type was relaxation. On a mechanical level, I have to realize that, yes, I can stay relaxed. This is what I have to do. I have to have the breathing. I have to have the look. I can't be tense at my stance. Now, on a technical level, I have to try it. I have to do it. I have to be relaxed. Even though no matter how hard it is, like you get punched in the face, I've been hit many a times because I was trying to float across and be relaxed. Guys would catch me about halfway and realize I'm coming and bang, hit me. So, say, well, okay, well, And then your psychological level. When should I be nice and relaxed and calm, and when should I be a little tense? Sometimes you want a little tightness. You want to show that guy a little aggression. Sometimes, I was told at one time by a really good fighter that you could beat about 90% of the people you come up against psychologically before you even throw a punch. And I tried it at a bunch of different tournaments I went to, and it was true. 90% of the guys out there had no idea why the hell they were there except their instructor said go. Excuse my language there, people. But the other 10%, boy, you better know how to fight, because they were there to fight. They weren't intimidated or scared. But when you get into techniques such as body flinching, moving, setting up things, your body has to tense at certain times. So there are times you want to show aggression, be tight, but it's a point of view. I decided to do it at this time for this reason. So when I'm developing the use of methods, I have those three levels: mechanical, technical, psychological. How is it performed mechanically? What is involved with it kinesiology-wise? It means basically, for those who don't know, how I structure the skeleton part of my body determines how something can physically be done. That's kinesiology in a nutshell. Then, is a technique to develop? Does it have the speed, the timing, the accuracy, the power that's needed for that technique? And there's ways of training that. And then psychological. When do I use this particular technique versus another? Now, if I can learn all that, and I take this particular technique, let's just say it's a step-up, four-leg round kick, jab, punch. That's my technique that I've developed all through these three levels. Then it should be effective. And there's three levels that tell me why something's effective. It's got to have these three elements in it in order to be effective. If it doesn't have these three elements, then it's not effective. One, it has to be powerful. Two, it has to be deceptive. Three, it's got to be fast. Or correct speed. We'll get into that a little bit later. All right? So we have a technique, and we want to make it effective. It's got to have these three elements. It's got to be powerful. If it's a kick-punch technique, and I just can't throw these things out there and expect them to utilize if I physically can't hit hard, or the timing's not right. They're not getting in. It doesn't snap the man's head back. It doesn't cover the distance while I'm getting in. And then the deceptiveness. Just because I'm strong doesn't mean I'm going to be able to hit the man. I used to fight a gentleman back in Richmond called T.J. Starks. He was a Richmond police officer. And this man had muscles on top of muscles on top of muscles. This man was built. And he was strong. He was a brown belt at that time, so was I. But he was just stiff as a board. Boy, if he hits you, he'd kill you. And we used to spar, and he gets so mad because he's, Wilson, stand still. Stop moving. And I said, no, what do you think, I'm stupid? I'm gone. As soon as he even looked like he was moving, I was gone. I didn't stand there and duke it out with him. I rinky-dinked him. I jumped to the side, smacked him, because he was stronger than twice, 3 times, 10 times stronger than I was. And I wasn't about to get hit with him. You know, Muhammad Ali was like that. They asked him why he's so good. He said, I do anything I have to do to keep from getting hit. That's what makes me a good fighter. I don't want to stand out there and duke it out with guys. I've had fighters like that would take a punch, a full blast face in the punch so they could hook you. They'd hook punch you off of it. They'd allow you to hit them in the head so they could hit you in the head one time. As soon as I realized that was their game, they were set up because I'd hit them in the head and block their punch coming. I knew it was coming. And I hit them in the head again. So you have to have deceptiveness. And there's all different ways to develop that. These other building blocks underneath it. We're not going to get into those at this time. We will later. Right now we're going to deal with the third level of effectiveness, and that's speed. So we can understand, if I want to be faster, how do I do that? Now the average student coming in, or teacher, you say, what do I need to do here? And he goes, or she goes, well, you got to move faster. And they can't tell you how to physically move faster. They've wasted your time. I would run screaming from that particular area and go find me somebody that could teach me how to be faster. 1 out of 1,000 would intuitively move faster. But unless you really know why or how you did that, you really not accomplished anything. You take a look at all these, we just got finished with the Olympics here, all these Olympic athletes that are dealing with sports, speed sports, racing, swimming, things on this line. Speed sports, where they have to, boom, go a certain distance. Man, it is so technical, it's unreal. These people are filmed. Every little minute part of their body has to be a certain way when they start to get the maximum takeoff. And the hand's got to be here at this time, the leg's got to be, and it's technical all the way. How can I get faster? Well, you got to do this, and then you have to be this way. So if somebody tells you got to be quicker, say, okay, how do I get quicker? Well, you take speed, and we're going to break it down into 3 basic elements. There's 3 types of speed. There's initial speed, timing speed, and miles per hour speed. Okay? Initial speed is your first speed. That's the first move. So you do a step-up forward-leg round kick. What's your first move in a step-up forward-leg round kick? The step-up. Not the kick, not the cocking action, taking the rear foot to the forward foot. Now, I know a lot of styles don't even teach the stepping part. But I do. I've gone to seminars to teach fighting techniques, and I do a step-up round kick, and they say, whoa, what's that? I said, it's a step-up round kick. Really? What, you stepped up your rear foot to your forward foot and delivered a kick? Because they stand right there and throw the kick. You know? Yes, that's part of footwork. So I've spent whole seminars just teaching step-ups instead of all this other stuff I wanted to teach. So your initial speed is your first movement. It's like a rear hand punch. Is my first movement cocking it, or is it shooting it? The initial speed. Now you've got to think about that as being as quick as you possibly can. Then you have timing speed. I'll give you an example you might be able to relate to. Again, in a tournament type of situation, where you have 3 or 4 judges around calling point on a thing. We just had it in the Olympic boxing, where they had, 4, 5, 6 judges sitting around, and everyone had a button, blue, red, blue, red. When they saw a point, they hit it. And if there was enough judges, a majority of judges saw at that particular time, you got the point. So their judges are calling points. Well, I was in a point fight again, and I had a fairly decent back fist technique. And I mean, it was fast. Parker Shelton from up in Indiana taught me these 3 techniques one day outside of a tournament. Grabbed a hold of me and said, let me show you these, Wilson. I need to work them before he went and fought Glenn Keeney at the time. And he's taught me these techniques. Well, I used them when I got back. You know, I was a green belt at the time, and I got back to Richmond. I started using them, and I started beating everybody with them. Well, I was fighting this young man, and I threw my normal back fist, boom, and the judges stand there looking at me. I said, what's right off the side of his head? Why didn't he give me the point? And I realized I was too fast. They didn't see it. They couldn't call the point. The kid didn't even react. So I slowed it down. Just enough to still beat the kid's timing, but slow enough that the judges could all see the technique, and they gave me the point. So timing speed is doing your technique at the right time. You can be too fast or too slow. You have to time it with your person, like you're going to do a setup or something on this line. So speed is also timing speed. You don't always have to be full blast to be utilizing speed. Then you have miles per hour. How fast can I make this technique go? Now, there's ways of developing that, miles per hour speed through independent movement, single extremity motion. We'll get into stuff on that line. But right now, I'm going to take initial speed and break it down. So you can see now, every one of these categories have subcategories to them. And if you understand them, when you start studying, you're no longer trying to do a flip kick, you're trying to understand the mechanics of the flip kick. And what makes it work? Well, if I want initial speed, remember that's the first movement, what characteristics do I have? What properties do I have? Well, I've got to be relaxed. I have to have relaxation. You cannot move quickly from a tense state. It's too telegraphic, plus it restricts your muscles. I've always told people, and we yell it in our schools and that, if it feels strong, it's wrong. It should never feel strong. You should see it happening. Now, I don't mean you need to be as loose as a goose, because that's the other way. You've got to be right on the brink of movement. Your muscles are just ready to go. They're taut, but they're not tight. They're relaxed, but they're not loose. Relaxation. Then you have to have rhythm changing. You have to move. It used to drive some of my fighters crazy. We'd get into a fight situation, or we'd be training in the thing. I said, don't stand still while you're standing still. They'd look at me like, what are you, crazy old man? What have you been on today? And I said, don't stand still when you're standing still. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean, Dad? I said, when you're standing there in the corner waiting to do something, don't stand there. Move. Have some shoulder move. Have a little bob and weave. Have a little to the side. Get your feet moving. Get your head moving a little bit. Don't stand still when you're standing still. So you have to have a rhythm changing. You can't stand up to somebody, and so many people do it. They stand just like this, and then they go like that. Well, you can see that coming a mile away. Well, yeah, you might hit somebody every once in a while, but that's because he shouldn't have been in the ring in the first place. If you can hit somebody like that, they don't need to be fighting. They need to be a doorstop or something, okay, because that's about the reaction timing they've got. Then you have independent movement. Again, this is dealing with the concrete development of initial speed. If you're going to do a flip kick or a round kick off the forward leg or a kicking technique, your upper body has nothing to do with it. Your body does not go down, your hands don't go to the side, they stay right where they're supposed to be, and you step up and your leg picks itself up, kicks itself out, sets itself back down again. If you want to add some power to it, it's right at the end of the kick. When the kick hits, then you can turn your hip, pop your shoulder into it, or whatever. But not initially. And how many people do you see today in this world in kicking and in karate and kickboxing can't kick above their waist? What I mean by that is their knee, when they pick it up to throw a kick, does not come above their waist. Watch them, guys, the next time you see this. Their body has to come down on the top to get their leg up. It's not coming. I train my fighters, their knees got to cock above their waist. If they're going to kick a guy in the jaw, their knee cocks jaw height. And it goes straight in, straight out. Now you say, oh, that's slow. No, it's not. It's actually faster because we have independent movement. And we'll get into that a little bit later on with the technical principles we're going to take a look at. But independent movement's not the same as single extremity motion, but I'll explain the difference in a little bit. Then you have explosiveness. In initial speed, explosiveness is a psychological state of mind. You would think it'd be a physical, boom, gone. No, it's a psychological. You're committed to a technique, you do it. There is no hesitance. There was a young man who was in boxing for a long time, had a tremendous knockout record because he sat in the chair, when the bell rang, he got up, walked over and hit the guy just as hard as he could. There was none of this dancing around, filling people out, touching gloves, checking each other, dancing around for 30, 40 minutes or whatever, and then get into a fight. As soon as the bell rang, he stood up, walked over, hit the guy. Usually caught him turning around, coming out of his ring, because his state of mind was, let's see what's going to happen. This guy's state of mind was, I'm going to hit this guy just as hard as I can, right now. Explosiveness, commitment to it. So in order to have initial speed, you cannot have any psychological hesitance. If you decide you're going to throw this technique at the guy and you have any fear that you might get retaliated, anything that slows your initial movement down because of what you think might happen, then you've lost that psychological edge. You have to have explosiveness. Usually, the person who initiates the technique is on the upswing. He's the guy that's got the advantage. The person that's catching and moving back and thinking about, he's playing catch-up all the time. So on the use of methods, to recap it, we have mechanical level, a technical level, a psychological level. Then we take those 3 levels and we try to make them into being effective. How can I make it effective? Well, to be effective, I have to have power, I have to have deceptiveness, it's got to be fast. And you break that power and deceptiveness break down just like I did speed. There's concrete blocks for it. How do I get deceptiveness? Well, there's 7 basic body movements. There's bobbing, weaving, and there's shoulder rolling, there's darting, hip torquing, footwork. All this stuff is within deceptiveness. Relaxation versus tension, blah, blah, blah. We'll get into that, maybe. And then you have power. And it's all broke down too. And then we took speed. We had initial speed, timing speed, miles per hour speed. And timing speed and miles per hour speed have breakdowns too. How do I get faster? How do I get the timing correct? There's games to play. There's timing games to do that allow you to develop timing speed. When you spar, instead of just going out and trying to bang each other, say, oh, wait, let's take it down to about 2/3 or 1/3 or half the speed that we normally do, and I want you to do this. You do this technique only, and I'm going to work my counter to this and try to develop the timing that's in there. I used to have guys with jabs. Say, okay, you're going to throw a jab just real slow at my head, and I'm going to either bob, slip, or go back. One of those 4, but I'm going to do it when I want to do it, not just because you threw a jab. So I want you to do it slow, so I see a jab coming and I consciously say to myself, slip to the side, bang, bob, duh, okay? I make the choice and I do it. Now, as I develop that ability, I can speed it up. So even though it's at full speed, I'm not reactionary timing, I have got timing speed developed. I have developed my timing speed. So I can see something come and say, okay, this is what's opening, bang, I can do this. We used to do slow motion sparring a lot, and it really helped us develop this. Because we no longer were just reacting to a movement, we could see the movement and determine what we're going to do. All right, so if I want speed, I have to have relaxation, rhythm changing, independent movement, and explosiveness. We've gone through that. Now we went through the use of methods and everything on that line. What we're going to get into right now, I like to